As you see at the camera lowering here, the horizon line starts rushing towards you. You get the instant mirror banding in the distance, and look at that curve at the end. Has the lovely fake apparent horizon line starts mirror banding off of the true horizon line. You see what's happening there? Driving down those long roads, you see that mirrored surface ahead of you. Well, this is what happens. This is what it creates. This is the soundly fake illusion. And as we zoom in, I mean, you see the fake curvature at the end, and there's the actual surface of the horizon, the eye level, where it's truly ending, and that's the apparent horizon caused by the mirror band. So, this is one way, easily, that soundly has now been soundly debunked.
Kind of reminds you of this image here. This gentleman walking on a mirage street, and obviously the bottom of his body has been eaten up. And that is what's happening on the ocean when we look at boats.
This is the Why Files, the science behind the news. They have an article, How Much Water is in the Atmosphere? It says, at any moment, the atmosphere contains an astounding 37.5 million billion gallons of water in the invisible vapor phase. This is enough water to cover the entire Earth, land and ocean, with 1 inch of rain. And, of course, goes on to talk about that as well. So, yeah, there's a lot of water in the atmosphere. I think we all kind of just know that, but I don't think we've ever really thought about what that means. If the atmosphere, especially over water, is made up of zillions and zillions of tiny convex drops of water, then collectively perhaps they all combine to make one big convex lens, in which case it would act like a magnifying glass.
The science is the same of that of a lens. Here's a simple example.
So if you're looking at Chicago here, just maybe now you can just see the top of the Sears Tower, and if our simulated temperature inversion moves into place, hopefully now you can see pretty much all of Chicago,
see all the lower buildings,
including what's at ground level.
So the atmosphere really is like acting like a lens.
Yes.
I got these plastic magnifying sheets and came up with another way of doing the same thing, using the sheet right here. Set the city up, a little cutout of the city, and now I've got the big magnifying glass sheet. Bring the camera right up to the lens. See, that's the normal view of the city. Now let's back up again.
The science is the same of that of a lens. Here's a simple example.
So if you're looking at Chicago here,
the atmosphere really is like acting like a lens.
Yes.
Atmosphere really is acting like a lens, and this is how much of the city is missing due to the lensing effect, the magnification of the atmosphere. You're missing, a good portion of the city just by pulling my iPhone back on a 3-foot long desk. That's how much I lost. You've probably seen the meme being passed around on Facebook and everything, showing the lower portion of one of the tall buildings there in Toronto being missing, and they're saying, "See, this is proof of the globe." And you start seeing videos like this one.
Another way to demonstrate the curve is with distant city skylines. A good example is the city of Toronto, viewed from across Lake Ontario. The city is dominated by the distinctive CN Tower, currently the third tallest tower in the world at 1,815 feet. There are many pictures online of the Toronto skyline, viewed from Niagara-on-the-Lake, New York, 30 miles away. With the Metabunk calculation, we see that 486 feet of the tower, or about 26% of it, should be hidden behind the curve of the Earth from that distance. And this is exactly what we see, as you can easily tell when compared to an image of the full tower at the same scale.
And let's try it again, okay? We're all the way up against the glass. Now let's zoom across the lake. And wow, look at that. The lower portions start to disappear. Now let's zoom back in to get a little closer to the one that Captain Baltard was talking about here. And wow, look at this. Here's his image on the right, and here's my image on the left. Missing the lower portions of the city had nothing to do with curvature whatsoever. I've got my magnifying sheet frame, and I created a little stand to paste the sun on it and keep it the same height over the flat surface of a table. So the sun is always going to be parallel with the surface. And check this out. All right, here's the first test of a sun moving over a flat surface, and with no atmospheric magnification, it does what we might expect it would. It gets smaller as it goes away from us. All right, now let's see what happens when we add in our atmospheric magnification. Again, water and refraction. Water causes magnification and refraction, right? So let's bring the sun back. Oh, check this out. Refraction bends the light downward. It made the sun set on a parallel surface as it was moving parallel, the same height, the whole way over a flat surface. The refraction caused the sun to set. And whenever the camera tilts at certain angles, I mean, it goes from convex to flat to concave to flat to convex to it's going all over. It's an incredible morphing Earth. That's what happens when you use a fisheye lens. And a lot of the cockpit footage that I've seen from like these Russian MiGs and stuff that people are sending me that get up there really high, same thing. In fact, you can look in one of the shots over the pilot's shoulder there. The wing is all warped because of the curvature of the windshield. So we got to be careful with curved lenses or glass that we're looking through. And that's why, for me, I've basically had to just throw most of that stuff out because it's inconclusive.
Well, I don't know if you guys have seen these pictures and videos before, but they are everywhere now. This one, for instance, was taken in Lake Pontchartrain, and some people say it proves the curvature. I don't know if these guys have ever done any research on that, but we're gonna debunk that anyway. We're gonna show you an experiment.
Okay, as we know now that the power lines are not on a straight line, we decided to do an experiment to illustrate that. So we placed the Lego towers in a curved line on a table that is perfectly flat, as you can see here. And the towers are all the same height. Now, as we lower the camera, the horizon gets closer to us, but the edge of the table becomes invisible. Or let's say the edge of the table disappears behind the new horizon line that we created by lowering the camera. Please bear in mind that on this table there are no atmospheric conditions that make it more difficult to see what is behind our horizon line in the real world. Also, bear in mind that this table is only 6 feet long. Imagine what this would look like if it was 23 miles long. Now let's take a look at the Lego towers. Do they look like they are going behind the curvature? Or is it just an optical illusion? Look at the top of these towers. Now look at the bottom. If we can get the horizon line closer to us than the last 4 towers, then those 4 towers will look like they are behind the curvature. If we zoom in a lot, we will get them back into view. But of course, if there was any atmospheric conditions or refraction, it would be impossible to bring them back into view. So in the real world, no matter how good your telescope is, what is behind the horizon line that is covered up by the non-uniform density transition zone will stay behind it. If we put a piece of glass on the horizon of this table, then things will start to disappear behind it and there is no way you can see them again. Even if this piece of glass is only 1 inch high, the Titanic would disappear behind it, because as it moves away from you, it becomes smaller and smaller until it finally disappears behind it. And of course, if that piece of glass was thicker and higher, it could disappear before it gets smaller. That's how the atmosphere works, and we will talk about this in detail in another video, but for now let's just enjoy watching the curvature on a flat table.
You should be honest with yourself and investigate more before you bring up such an argument. If those power lines prove that the earth is round, then these Lego towers prove that the table is round too, right? Wrong. The table is flat and the Lego towers are not on a straight line, and neither are the power lines. And here are some pictures of a 23 miles bridge that is in the same lake but shows no curvature. You know why? Because that bridge from these positions is on a straight line.
What's odd is there are people who think Earth is flat.
Right.
But recognize that the moon is round. Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and the sun are all spheres, but Earth is flat. That's not, something doesn't square.
Something doesn't jive, right?
Okay.
This is the typical question that most people ask when you tell them that the Earth is flat. They imagine it like a disk in space with all those planets around it. They keep the same globe model and they just change the shape of the Earth. This is why their next question is always, where's the edge? Or, why don't you go find the edge of the Earth?
Dear Globe Earth believers, we love you. But when we say that the Earth is flat, we do not mean that the Earth is a flying disk and water is falling out of the edge. Please stop imagining the Earth like that. What we mean is that the Earth is the basement of the universe, and the universe is not what you think it is. So some flat earthers believe that the Earth is an infinite plane and the stars and planets are circling above it. And some believe that it's a closed system with a dome on it, and that it's impossible to go through it. And other flat earth researchers believe other things based on their knowledge and experiments. There are too many theories. To sum it up, none of us know the real shape of the entire Earth as an object, but we all agree that it's flat from the surface that we live on, because we can prove it from Earth itself. Almost all flat earthers believe that stars and planets are just little lights in the sky, not as big and far as NASA says. So when you say that if all planets are round then the Earth cannot be flat, then you are considering the Earth as a planet too, and that is not what we say or think. So that is a false claim in the first place. This is exactly like saying, if all these pool balls are spherical, then the pool table must be spherical too.
You must unlearn what you have learned.
And if you still have the same question in your head, then here is something curious for you to think about. How do we know that the moon is a sphere? Have we ever seen the other side of it? No. I will let my friend Karen B show you a little demonstration.
When something is round and too far away from you, you cannot say what shape it is. It can be a flat plate, it can be oblate, it can be concave, it can be a sphere. You just can't tell. Here are 4 objects. They all look round, right? But are they all spheres? How would we know? What if I told you that there is only one object that is not spherical? Can you tell what it is? Can you tell me how you knew it? How would we even know the distance? I can tell you that they are 100 feet away and you will believe it, but they can only be a few inches away.
And I can tell you that they are 10 meters in diameter, but they could only be 5 centimeters in diameter. You can never know using your camera.
Please look at them carefully. Here is the only object that is not spherical here. Here it is. I bet you thought it would be another one. But it will blow your mind if I tell you that this second object is also not spherical, and it's flat. And it will blow your mind even more if I tell you that this third object is concave. But how about this one? This is the only spherical object. We could have an oblate object and you would think it's spherical as well. So looking at something round does not mean it's a sphere. Have you ever seen the moon rotating in the sky? You have always seen one side of it, which makes it impossible for anyone to say the moon is spherical. However, using the word round is correct. A plate is also round.